Hello class, welcome back, and this is going to be my first video where I'm just going to do some example problems off of a worksheet. Now, the worksheet is off of a site called Kuda Software, and they are a website with a large variety of free worksheets which I will be referencing often in this series. If you're interested in following along with this worksheet, or even better, giving it a try on your own before watching the video, I will put a link to a PDF of the worksheet in the description. Now, before I get started, I want to acknowledge that the way I teach addition and subtraction is not the way that I learned it when I was growing up. So I am going to provide you with an alternate explanation, but I'm also going to give you a little bit of advice as to why I don't see it as the best way to go. So if you look up here, this is kind of the rule that I learned, right? If I have two positives together, it makes a positive. That makes sense. If I have two negatives together, that makes a negative. That makes sense. But when I have different ones, negative positive or positive negative, then I use the quote-unquote larger number and its sign and subtract the two. So for example, with this one here, negative 3 plus 5, 5 is the quote-unquote larger number of the two, so we use the positive sign and subtract. Now, I don't like this method very much at all. Not because it's wrong, it's absolutely right, but it's very easy to get these rules mixed up, especially since there are two separate blocks of rules for addition and subtraction. So if you are the kind of person that prefers to have a list of rules to memorize, you are absolutely welcome to use this chart right here. Just because it's not the way I think doesn't mean it's not a correct way to think. Okay? So I'm going to leave this up on the screen for just a moment for anyone who wants to pause the video. You can write this down, and I will even, at the end of this video, provide a link to some videos on how to use these specific rules that I didn't teach. Okay, so you can look for that at the end of the video. For now, let's get this started. Now, I did not do every single, I did not take every single problem from this worksheet, but we still have quite a few to get through, so let's get moving. Now, a very common mistake that I see when students go to work on their worksheets or their exams, and that is they will look at the first problem and they will sit and they will try to solve it and they will try to solve it and they will try to solve it, and they'll either solve it or maybe not, who knows, and then they'll move on to question number 2 and so on. Question 3, question 4, that's the way they work. That is a very logical way of going about it. It's also not particularly helpful. When you are looking at a worksheet, the very first thing you should do every single time is skim the whole worksheet, look for problems that you can do very quickly and very easily. So for example, number 4 here, 8 plus 7, well, I know what that is. I've basically got that memorized. That's 15. 3 plus 4 is 7. Basically, anything with just positive numbers I feel pretty confident in right now. 2 minus negative 2, it could be 0. I don't know. I'm not going to mess with that. But 8 minus 7, I know what that is, right? 8 minus 7 is 1. And let's see, 38 plus 22, well, that's pretty big, but I think we can handle that. 38 plus 22. Well, let's see. 30 plus 20 is 50, and 8 plus 2 is 10. So I believe our answer is going to be 60. Right? That goes back to the very first video. Let's see. 2 plus 15 plus 4 I could do right now. Let's see. 2 plus 15 is 17. Plus 4, 18, 19, 20, 21. I know I'm not entirely consistent about whether I circle or square or do anything at all with my answers, but I'm going to try to put a square around it. It is a very good idea to make some indication that this is your final answer, because even though I don't really care that much about final answers, your teachers will, and it's very useful to them for them to be able to find the final answer right away. Okay, so now we're going to look at these ones with negative numbers a little bit more closely. Negative 12 plus 7. Okay, so when I'm doing these, I am going to be making my number line. And I'll probably just copy and paste my number line between problems. So let's say 0. Now I need to be able to go to negative 12, so let's see how far I can go. Okay, so I managed to get to about 20 on the positive side and about 18 on the other side. I'm just going to label the 5s only. And now that I have this number line created, as messy as it is, I'm just going to go ahead and copy it so that I can paste it onto other problems. Okay, so for this problem, and let's use red this time. Okay. Negative 12 plus 7. Well, all right, where's negative 12? Negative 12 is a little bit below negative 10, right? There's negative 12. Plus 7 means we are moving to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, that's negative 5. I think I'll indicate my answers going forward by highlighting. Okay? So the answer is negative 5 for number 1. Let's take a look at number 2. Negative 10 plus negative 7. Well, this is kind of unfortunate because it looks like I'm not going to be able to fit this on my... Oh, yes, I will. Okay, good. I thought it wouldn't fit on the number line, but it will. Use purple this time. So we're starting at negative 10. Now, this isn't actually a combination that we've seen before, plus negative 7. Right? We've talked about minus a negative, but we haven't talked about plus a negative. And if you think about it, if you think about this as being $10 in debt, and you take on an additional $7 in debt, well, then your total is going to be $17 in debt. On the number line, when you have this plus and this minus, and they're different, you're going down the number line. So whether you're adding a negative number or whether you're subtracting a positive number, you are moving down the number line. And of course, if they match, if they're both positive or they're both negative, then you're moving up the number line. Okay, so starting at negative 10, we'll just double check. Moving down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, that looks like negative 17 to me. That's our answer. Let's move on. Negative 6 plus 12. Again, I hope we're seeing the pattern here. We're going to start at negative 6, which is, let's see, here's 0, here's negative 5, there's negative 6. And since we are adding 12, that means we are moving to the right. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We end up at positive 6, which is our answer. because I'm labeling these, let's go ahead and label this one as moving downward. And we've already got that other one moving upward. 8 plus 7, that was easy. We already did it. We can skip it. 3 plus 4, it was easy. We can skip it. The reason that you want to do these first is twofold. One, it gets some of the work out of the way right away. And that gets you in the habit of answering questions and of answering them correctly. But secondly, it also just saves time. Especially if you're taking a test, it would really be awful to have a very easy problem at the end of the exam that you never got to look at because you didn't read through all of the problems. So make sure you are reading through every problem before you begin your exam. Okay, number 6. Negative 45 plus 9. Okay, well now I know we are outside of our number line's reach. And I'm not going to make a number line that goes all the way down to negative 45. So let's think about this. Okay? If I am starting at negative 45, I'm starting at negative 45, and I'm moving, well, let's see, if I'm adding 9, I'm going to be moving up 9. Okay, I don't have my number line, but I do know that if I start at negative 45 and I move up 9, that gets me closer to 0, right? So the number is going to look like it's decreasing, even though it's actually increasing. Remember that the next number up from negative 45 is negative 44, then negative 43, then negative 42, right? That's going up the number line. So if we look back at the rules that we had at the very beginning of this episode, it should make sense. What are we doing? We're going up. So we're adding a positive and a negative. We use the larger number and its sign and subtract the 2. So in this case, using that rule, the larger quote-unquote number is negative 45, so we're going to use the negative sign and we're going to subtract the 2. So we end up getting negative, and then 45 minus 9, I believe is 36. But again, the way I think of it is I start at negative 45 and then I climb the ladder or go up the elevator in that building we were talking about. If I go up 9 floors from the negative 45th floor, what floor do I end up at? Well, the negative 36th floor. Okay, find each difference. Now remember, we didn't really touch on this. This word sum means addition, right? It means that you're adding things together. The word difference means subtraction. So with my method, we go from positive 2, and then we remember that when we subtract a negative, that means going up the number line, and we go up 1, 2 spaces to 4, which is our final answer. However, it is also valid to look at this problem and recognize, oh yeah, when I subtract a negative, that's the same thing as adding a positive. That is totally a fine and valid way of looking at this topic, at this problem. If you look at minus negative and you can just remember that minus negative is the same thing as plus a positive, that's perfectly fine. Use that. Either way, the answer is 4. Let's move on. Negative 1 minus 10. Okay, so I think at this point, I don't need the number line anymore. Okay? I think if I start at negative 1, and then I go down 10, if I start at the first basement floor, the negative 1 floor, and I go down 10, well, that's negative 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Negative 11. Let's move on. We already did 8 minus 7. That was one of the easy ones that we started off with. So how about number 14? Negative 8 minus negative 6. Okay, so I'm going to use the number line for this one, because whenever there are 3 or more negatives in one problem, my brain explodes a little bit. So I'm going to fall back on my original idea of using a number line. So negative 8 is right there. Okay. And then minus negative is the same thing as adding a positive, right? Either way, you're going up. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where am I? I'm at negative 2. And that's my answer. Let's keep going. Evaluate each expression. Now we're getting to some big numbers, right? Negative 10 minus 47. Okay, well, let's see if our rules from the beginning have any light to shed on this situation. I've been talking about my method this whole time. Let's look at the other one. Okay, so we have two numbers that are they're being subtracted, right? We've got a negative number minus a positive number. So let's see what our rules have to say. Here's our rules on subtraction. And if you have a negative number minus a positive number, if we have a negative number minus a positive number, first off, we know that our answer is negative. And since it's the same thing as negative 5 plus negative 3, we're essentially adding the two, even though we're subtracting. This is why I try to get across the idea that addition and subtraction aren't really two separate things. If I add negative 5, that's the same thing as subtracting positive 5. If I subtract negative 3, that's the same thing as adding 3. They're not two separate things, they're the same. So let's go back down. Negative 10 minus 47. So what we're really doing is we're taking a negative number and moving it down, making it even more negative. So we're going to add the values, 10 and 47, and our answer is going to be negative 57. Number 22. Well, this says negative 29 minus 29. And I swear all of my instincts want to say 0, but I'm pretty sure 0 is the wrong call here. Because if I'm starting at negative 29 and I'm going down a further 29, I believe our rules up top said that we use the negative, but then add the values of the two. So 29 and 29, well, let's see, 30 and 30 is 60. And each one of those is missing one, so 29 and 29 must be 58. And our answer is negative 58. Looks like we got 3 more. Oh, looks like we got 4 more. 13 plus negative 29. Well, that's the same thing as saying 13 minus 29, right? I mean, that's the same thing. So let's see. If I'm at positive 13 and I'm going down 29, well, after 13 spaces or moves or steps or whatever, I'll be at 0. How many more will I have to go? Well, I find that by subtraction. So 29 minus 13 is 16. But since we are being dragged down below 0, right? We're starting at positive 13 and we're going down past 0. This is actually negative 16. Number 24, we already took care of. Number 25 is negative 32 minus 44. Once again, since we have two negatives, we are essentially combining them to make an even more negative number. So we're going to get negative 32 and 44. Well, let's see. 32 and 40 is 72, and then another 4 is 73, 74, 75, 76. Our answer is negative 76. Almost done. Negative 12 plus negative 11. Pretty sure we've got it down by this point. They're both negative. This is the same thing as saying negative 12 minus 11. Because they're both negative, we're making an even more negative number. We end up with negative 23. I believe we did number 27. Yes, that's 21. 16 plus negative 13 plus 5. Well, again, this is the same thing as 16 minus 13. This plus negative is the same thing as just minus. Adding a negative and subtraction are the same thing. Plus 5. Let's just go ahead and do it in order. 16 minus 13 is 3. Plus 5 is 8. So there you have it. My method of adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers without getting confused. If this video was helpful to you, I suggest going down into the description where I will have not only a link to this worksheet, but also a link to Khan Academy exercises where you can try this out on your own and demonstrate your mastery. In the next video, we're going to talk about multiplication and why it is that a negative times a negative equals a positive. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.